Good evening, YouTube viewers. This is Heather Davis with Eden Culture's Talk Show Live, Sundays at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. I'm signing in early yet again. I think I might do that for a bit just because I want to give you all a chance to call in and make comments. I've improved my system here. I noticed that there were like 4 of you who tried to call in last week, and I didn't see you because I was switching back and forth between viewing comments on YouTube and viewing Blog Talk callers. Well, I've got it pulled up now where I can see both concurrently. So if you do call and I don't answer, just keep trying. This is a one-woman show, but we do have Jason King with Sean's Outpost who's going to be calling in tonight. And he's a little bit of a Bitcoin expert. So I hope that you'll enjoy that. The Blog Talk podcast is going to start in about 12 minutes. You can download that later from blogtalkradio.com/Eden Cultures. Or you can just go to my website, edencultures.com. And when you go there, you'll see a link that just says EC Live right next to the home button, and that's where you can access the YouTube views, the YouTube video. Right now, I just finished editing the Comet, ISON, and Global Warming show that I did 2 weeks ago, and the video was really bad. I'm still getting the hang of this live stream, but I fixed it and it's going to be uploaded later tonight or tomorrow morning. So, and I've added quite a few photos to that, graphs and photo aids to help you understand what we're talking about. So that was a really popular, it was only up for one night and it got quite a few views on YouTube, and it's already got about 400 downloads on Blog Talk. I know you're all interested, and I did talk with Delia Paul, who writes for my website, and he is an Air Force trained meteorologist, so he got into the effects of global warming, and I kind of tied that in with, okay, the theories that Comet ISON may be carrying a lot of meteorite trash behind it. Well, it would become a meteorite if it crosses through our atmosphere. And how those meteorites, if they come over, would possibly, warm the interior of our planet, being complicated by weather modification, because what they're doing is perhaps reflecting some of the sun's rays, but also keeping in some of the heat, kind of like aluminum foil on the outside of our atmosphere. And so that could release this methane hydrate that's frozen beneath the ocean. So we get into that a lot. But the video that I'm going to upload, it has a Comet ISON model in there. So you can see the track that it's going. We don't get into the size of the comet quite a bit, and that's because it's so debatable. So I hope you'll check that video out too. And I've mentioned a couple times, please check out edencultures.com, and thank you so much to Thomas Sanders, the web designer who helped me wrap my head around WordPress and plugins, just trying to make my website the most that it could be. And so now you should be able to view that with your iPad, your iPhone, and let me know if you have issues with that. And we've got newsletter subscription you can sign up for. You can donate to Eden Cultures Media, where you'll help me to get a new processor, not a new memory card. I figured it out today. So if you want to improve the quality of this production, and you want me to be able to incorporate live different photos and videos while I'm doing the show, then I need a new processing unit for my computer, and it could cost about $200. So maybe there's an angel out there that wants to sponsor me for that. And I will post you on our recognition wall on the homepage, and I'll mention your name probably 1,000,000 times and thank you on the radio show. But if you want an example of how great this live show could be, check out the Comet ISON edited video where I edited in the videos and the photos, and that's what I'm capable here, and software-wise, I'm capable of doing that live. So we can really get a cool interactive experience. And my CPU isn't capable of it. So it can live stream and do blog talk at the same time, but that pretty much maxes it out, guys. So if you're proud of me for doing this on a laptop, then thank you, thank you, thank you. Anyway, so what else? Thanksgiving is coming up this Thursday, so if you're thankful for all that you have, I do hope you'll consider donating a portion of a Bitcoin, perhaps not a whole one, because they're worth around $800 right now, but to Sean's Outpost. It's a homeless outreach charitable organization founded by a dear old friend of mine, Jason King. He's also on the board of Bitcoin, but I'll introduce him more in about 8 to 10 minutes, so keep that in mind. And as far as Eden Cultures Live, I'm going to keep doing this on Sunday nights, 6 p.m. Central Standard Time, for an hour. And if I start getting 300-400 downloads on every show, like I did with the Comet Ison one within like a week, then I'm going to perhaps expand that. So please don't hesitate to let me know like your feedback on anything. If you see me glancing over here, it's my second screen, and I'm monitoring how many people are watching. I'm able to see if you can comment right away. So I really got this down. I can see if you're calling in, and the call-in number, let me just get that pulled up for you. You're not able to call for the next 6 minutes or so, and then honestly tonight, Jason King is probably going to talk the whole time. We'll see if we have time to take questions or anything, but the call-in number is 347-934-0262. So that number is going to stay the same every week, and I'm excited about that. I'm actually really excited about being a radio person, even though I'm not syndicated at this point. This is a one-woman show. I'm just really proud of myself the way that I've been progressing every week. Like, I figured out the delay. It was because I had my preview playing. Stupid things. Like, I figured out the echo during the death when I was showing you videos and photos. It's because I was capturing audio in 2 different ways. And then, of course, I can't do that unless I get a new processor. So I'm working on that. So the show can get better with time and more fun and interesting. Now, as far as like putting a lot of music and such in there, it gets a little more complicated with the podcast and the video at the same time. But I'm working all of that out. So I'm producing, and I'm also talking on here. It's just me. I am Eden Cultures, let's face it. No, I actually do have 2 contributors on the website, and one of them is Mr. SurvivorNet, and he is anonymous, but he blogs about survival techniques. And he believes in the future of economic collapse. So he is a fan of Bitcoin. And then there's Eli Paul, and he does a lot of political commentary on the website, but also religious commentary, because as you know, Eden Cultures does stem from my desire to get back to the possibility that we humans have if we would just change our ways, of getting back to the paradise that we could all live in if we could cooperate. And so he actually is not a Bitcoin fan. He thinks that it could lead us to the cashless society. But tonight's show is Bitcoin's bright side. So I might do a future episode with Eli Paul on Bitcoin's dark side. I haven't decided that yet. Get into prophecy and and it'll be more religious and conspiratorial, that whole New World Order, cashless society. Are they going to turn it against us kind of thing? Like right now, it allows you privacy, and I'll get into that with Jason King. And we love that, especially us, constitutionalists, because we believe we have a right to privacy. But could it eventually get turned against us if the dollar does collapse and then they track everything we do? Who knows? could it become required? And that's something that I'm thinking of doing a future episode on, just in the name of fairness. But right now, I think Bitcoin is a positive force, and that's where I disagree with you, Paul. So anyway, you guys, I know I'm not from the north, I'm totally from the south, but I still say you guys. I'm stalling a little bit here. We've got about 3 minutes until I go on air with the podcast. But I just feel guilty for my YouTube viewers because the episode, the quality as far as the YouTube side of it hasn't been great, but it's getting better. And so I sign on early out of respect and loyalty for you. And I do want your input as far as future episodes as well. I want to do one, Paul actually, he wants to do one on Kennedy, the 50th anniversary of his death recently came up, and I'm sure you all heard about the protests in Dallas. I think it's called Dealey Plaza, and they weren't allowed to go into a certain area. I believe that's because of the free speech zones, which is basically the entire United States. Like, there's certain areas you don't have free speech, but I thought free speech was supposed to be free and unhindered. Anyway, if you want to know exactly what free speech is supposed to be, you can get my album, The Patriot's Soundbook. It's on iTunes now. You can also go to heatherdavis.com. I spell it Dayvis, where all my albums are, which right now I have a bunch of singles and that one album. But that album is actually the Declaration of Independence and the United States Constitution, Volume 1. So actually, technically, we don't get into the First Amendment yet because Volume 2 is going to be the Bill of Rights. And so, yeah. And I've already called into Blog Talk. I just simply have to turn the sound on when it's time. So, all right, you guys, we'll be tuning back in about 1 minute, so bear with me.
Blog Talk Radio.
Good evening, Blog Talk Radio listeners. This is Heather Davis with Eden Culture's Talk Show Live, and I'm here tonight, and we're going to talk about Bitcoin. Bitcoin is an alternate currency, but hopefully my caller, Jason King, is going to be calling in soon. I hope there's not confusion with the time zone. But anyway, let me just make sure that he didn't back out on me. No, he went back out on me. But he's doing something really amazing with Bitcoin. I'm sure you've all heard about the Silk Road, which is basically you could until the FBI broke it down. They were selling drugs, and I've even heard rumors that the guy that was running the Silk Road had even ordered hits on people with the Bitcoin. So you may have heard some bad things about Bitcoin, but Jason King is doing something good with Bitcoin, and that's what's so cool about it. He's been in a number of recent publications, and he's been on Marketplace. I know I heard him on Marketplace and PBS. I think he did an interview with Wired Magazine. I mean, he's kind of all over the place because people are really interested in this, and I just pulled strings because I knew him and like begged him to do this, and he agreed. So let's hope that he calls in because I am not an expert on Bitcoin at all. Let me just tell you, at all. And I've got a call right now, so maybe that's him. Hello, is this Jason?
Hey, what's going on, Heather?
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing good. How about yourself?
I'm good. So I did a little bit of an intro and basically just said Bitcoin was an alternate currency, but I'm going to let you kind of explain a little bit more about what it is. But then I really want you to talk about Sean's Outpost for a little while. And then maybe after that, we can get more into more about Bitcoin. But for now, can you just explain to people what in the world it is on a basic level?
What is Bitcoin?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So on a basic level, I don't know where you really get to a basic level of Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is a virtual cryptocurrency. And what that means is that it's created on a computer, a series of computers that are networked throughout the world. Basically, it's a unit of value that you can transact with any other person on the earth. So it's very simple for you sitting in your living room to send a Bitcoin from your computers, like in South Africa or China or whatever, instantaneously. That's really never been possible before. It's really one of the fundamental things that makes Bitcoin so important.
Okay, so it crosses international borders.
Yeah. So money transmission is like a huge problem. And so if you want to get into sort of wealth disparity, the poorest countries on earth are actually the most expensive countries to send money to. If you think about it, it seems like it should be the exact opposite of that. It's like the people in Somalia can't afford $150 for a wire transfer fee. But that's how much it is to send money to those areas. And so Bitcoin just completely negates this. It's a decentralized system of this cryptocurrency that only exists in cyberspace. It's monitored by what's called a blockchain, which is basically just a public ledger book of everyone's transactions that have ever happened in Bitcoin. Now, you have what's called an address, which is like where your Bitcoins are kept. Like you have a public address. And so everyone can see that. They can see how much money is in that address. But knowing your address doesn't know that it is you that owns that address. And they also have no way of spending that currency because they don't have your private address, which is just your private key for being able to spend your Bitcoin. So what's great is that you can keep everybody accountable in terms of, you know for a fact that if you sent a merchant money, like for a fact that it's there, you can look at the address the merchant supplied you. You can say, nope, I can see it right there, and everyone else can verify that too. We could literally do an entire show just talking about what Bitcoin is.
Wow, okay. Well, you gave a good basic explanation. So what I talked about, the bad side of Bitcoin for just a second before you called, like the Silk Road and, the guy that owned it was supposedly ordering hits on people. But you're doing something really good with it. So I want you to talk about that for a minute.
Sure. So I'm the founder of an organization called Sean's Outpost. And what we do is that we are a homeless outreach based out of Pensacola, Florida, and we are primarily Bitcoin based and entirely cryptocurrency based. There are other virtual currencies out there, cryptocurrencies, so Bitcoin, like Litecoin, Peercoin, Primecoin. We're primarily a Bitcoin charity, and we have since March of this year we've fed 22,000 meals to the homeless in our area entirely with Bitcoin. So
wow.
That's what we do. That's
do you have any idea like what the homeless population in Pensacola is?
Yeah, so as of our last PIT count, which is point in time count, it's a metric used by the U.S. Department of Housing. One day a year, they get a bunch of people and they go around and they look everywhere they can and they try to find homeless people, and they're terribly bad at it. But our PIT count is 1,037 homeless people in the Escambia County area, and that's probably significantly on the low side. When you start working with homeless individuals and people, you realize that there's a big social stigma attached to being a homeless person. So a big part of that is that they don't really want to be around anybody because they don't like getting treated poorly. And also they're very vulnerable if you know where their home is. So they go through great lengths to make sure that you don't know where they are. So the validity of those numbers is generally not widely accepted. So I would say that the number of homeless people here is actually probably significantly over 1,000. But officially, it's like 1,037.
Right, and honestly, I know there are people that are in like a transient status that are probably staying at other people's houses, and they're probably not being counted too. So, are you doing anything specifically for Thanksgiving in that area, or for that? Because hopefully some people that watch this will donate and help some of these homeless folks out. I mean, what if not for Thanksgiving? Do you have some other project going on right now?
Yeah, absolutely. We've got other projects going on too, but we are doing something really cool for Thanksgiving. So we have a homeless sanctuary that we run called Satoshi Forest, and it's a 9-acre homeless sanctuary here. And the reason you need a homeless sanctuary here is, I don't know if you touched on this at all, but it's actually illegal to be homeless in Pensacola. Our city passed these wonderful anti-homeless ordinances in May of this year. One of them is a no camping ban, which makes it illegal to camp on public property. So like right now I'm sitting here on my front porch freezing because it's about 38 degrees. But if I was on a public park bench right now and I'm like, man, it's cold and I got a blanket out, I'm now immediately subject to arrest because having a blanket and staying warm pushes you over the threshold of committing a crime for being poor and being homeless. So then, you get into the situation where you have to make the decision of whether you want to go to jail or you want to freeze to death. So it's just, a great situation to be in. So back to your question.
Yeah.
We run a homeless sanctuary. So there's 9 acres in Pensacola that Sean's Outpost owns. And if you're homeless, you can go there and you can camp and you can live and no one's going to bother you. And you can, just take it and use it to get your shit together for a little bit, without someone harassing you just for being poor.
Yeah, and I saw a photo of a little cabin that you guys built. So you're actually starting to build shelters too for these people.
Yeah. And we have to go back and talk about Thanksgiving, but I'll answer your question.
Okay.
Yeah. So we actually, a lot of the homeless here are actually they have a pretty good skill set in construction because they came to Pensacola to help rebuild Pensacola after Hurricane Ivan destroyed it. And then after all the work dried up, they came here to support us, to help us out, but we didn't really have help for them. And we couldn't get them back to where they were going. So a lot of them just became homeless. They just lived on the street. So we're trying to harness some of that. We've been experimenting with the concept of having like homeless carpenters build houses for other homeless people. So we think there's a lot of power in that concept, and hopefully we'll be able to do more with that over time. But we built a prototype that we had some issues with, and then had to scrap it. But the one that you've seen the picture of is like that's our new one, and that's like the first production model. And it's beautiful and it was awesome. And we built it from nothing into the full house, and the homeless people built it. And they had take pride in building it. And it was awesome. But for Thanksgiving, so the Bitcoin community is extremely supportive of what we do. And we just had one of our biggest supporters who actually runs another Bitcoin-based charity called Bitcoin 100, just offered to come down, and I guess he specializes in Kahlua-style pit roasting. So he's going to come down and pit roast a bunch of turkeys in Satoshi Forest. And we're going to kind of have a field kitchen out there, and we're going to cook a big camp out Thanksgiving dinner, and we'll feed anybody who's there, and then we're going to divide everything else up into like to-go boxes and take those out and deliver Thanksgiving dinner out Pensacola.
Oh, that's great. I mean, anyway, it just really makes me happy what you're doing, because it wasn't even a year ago that my husband and I were like in this horrible situation, and so we didn't know. We imagined, what if we become homeless? You know what I mean? And it really put me in that place of it can happen to anybody right now because the economy is bad. And I know the unemployment numbers are not what they're, being reported as. So I'm just really glad that you're doing that. So.
That's such a great point. And I think that we have this stigma where people think that homeless are worthless, and somehow they're just they're just these slackers who just need to put in more effort. But I think a lot of people don't realize how close they really are to being homeless. You are a missed paycheck or a divorce or a major illness away from having nothing. And as the economy erodes, as faith in the U.S. currency erodes, that's really just going to go up exponentially. So if the next time you see a homeless guy, and he just wants some food, maybe give him some food, because maybe you'll be homeless one day, and you'll probably hope that the person that passes you by gives you food too. So trying to pay it forward a little bit.
Yeah. Well, so can I ask why you chose? Speaking of the economy and unemployment and the U.S. dollar eroding, does that have something to do with why you chose Bitcoin for your charity, or did you just choose it because of some other reason?
Well, I have said before, I think Bitcoin chose us.
Okay.
But I've been into Bitcoin since about 2010, and I've just been a fan, have had some Bitcoin, and I thought that it could really be a revolutionary way to change how finance is done globally. But there was not a whole lot of value in the system, in terms of what would be recognized as, being a valuable commodity or currency until the first part of this year. And in March, it broke its all-time high and crossed over $36 and crossed up to the $50 mark, where one Bitcoin was worth $50. And at that point in time, there was all of this speculation on all of the Bitcoin forums, and it was that, was this real value? Because Bitcoin's created on a computer, it's virtual, it doesn't exist, right? So, it can't be worth anything. But the truth is that something's only worth something because two people say that it has value. That's the only, I have something and you want it, so you say that it's worth value.
It's almost like going back to bartering and trading. I mean, it's beyond the gold standard. It's just, even before that, it's like barter and trade, straight up, free market, complete. That's what's cool about it.
Yeah, very similar to that. Well, so at that time, I was like, look, you guys just stop arguing. And I almost flippantly said it. I was like, if you send me a Bitcoin right now, I'll go feed 40 homeless people with it. Because it costs us about $1.25 to make a meal. And I was like, I'll go feed 40 homeless people, and then we can stop having this argument, because 40 people who were starving aren't starving anymore, and obviously that's real value, so Bitcoin has value. And I said it almost off the cuff, and, just flippantly, and then all of a sudden people started donating Bitcoin, and it apparently resonated very well. And like I said, that was March 17th. And here we are almost into December, and we just fed our 22,000th meal, and pretty much entirely funded by Bitcoin. So, that's how we got started with Bitcoin.
That's awesome. And before we go more into Bitcoin and get off of the charity, I want to talk more about this whole thing with the Pensacola. What is it? The City of Commerce. I mean, what are they doing? Let me say one thing first. We were in the Bradenton, Sarasota area about 2 years ago, and Tampa was about an hour north of us. Yeah, they made homelessness illegal, or they called it panhandling, illegal in, I think it was either Tampa or St. Pete. And it didn't mean that people stopped asking for money and food. It just meant that they came south, and we saw them. So it basically just forced them to migrate out of the main city into places with less resources to help them, so I saw that firsthand. I mean, is Pensacola, what are they doing? Seriously.
So there's an epidemic in the way that city governments treat homeless people, and it happens a lot in Florida because we have a very touristy economy. We get a lot of our revenue from tourists here. So there's this concept that the economy is bad, and it's bad because of homeless people, and it's this very cowardly way of looking at it. The truth is that the economy's bad, so it's bad for everyone. It's irrespective of any one factor. The economy is just bad, but there's a lot of terrible businesses that they don't have really good business practices. They didn't build a solid business model. But in a boom cycle when there's tons of people and tons of cash flowing around, even crappy businesses can stay afloat. So they think that they have done something correctly because they're still in business. Mm-hmm. Well, when things start tightening up, those businesses go out of business, or they struggle a whole lot because they weren't valuable businesses to start with. Well, as soon as that happens, you can do one of two things. You can say, oh, maybe I made a miscalculation and I'm in the wrong business and I should have done something differently. Or you can start looking for people to blame. And it's very easy to find these people that don't have the means to stand up for themselves, and they don't have a way to really defend themselves and say, look, that's blight. People come down here and they don't want to see a bunch of homeless people, so they won't take their wallet out and spend money because they see these homeless people. And it's really easy to get a lynch mob together after this group, because if you have a group of merchants that aren't making the money that they used to be making, and you have someone come to town and I'm telling you, why we're not making money? We're not making money because of these homeless people. It's really easy to get a lynch mob together for that.
But you know what the irony is? Wait, I have to say this. The irony is those homeless people probably used to be their customers, and now they just don't have the money to come in, but they're acting like the homeless people are a completely different subset of people, when really it's happening to everybody. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, absolutely. But they don't look at it like that, because to treat another person like that, you actually have to stop thinking about that person as a person. We had an incident here a few weeks ago where, like I said, it's illegal to have a blanket. But when it started freezing here, Sean's Outpost went out and distributed blankets, because illegal or not, I'm not going to allow somebody to freeze in the park. So about a week and a half after that, we were out doing food sharings, and we started getting reports from people that code enforcement had been coming in and stealing their blankets. And we were like, no, you must be mistaken. You must have misplaced it. But it happened over and over again. We had a bunch of people say, no, code enforcement's coming in. They're just taking our blankets. And it was worse than that. They were discriminating, not just against homeless people, but they were taking all of the black homeless people's blankets. It was just they were discriminatory and straight up racist. To do that, to get in a mindset where it's freezing and someone has a blanket that's their only method of staying warm, and regardless if it's your job or not, getting into the mindset of I'm going to go take this person's blanket requires you to make some concessions in your morality. And to do that, I feel that generally means that you have really stopped looking at that person as a human being, and you look at them just as a nuisance or a problem. And it is a problem, but that the problem is fixed with compassion. It's fixed with helping. It's fixed with being willing to lend a hand out to your fellow man. Just like we're going to shove this under the rug and the problem's going to go away. Not only are ineffective, they actually exacerbate the situation, because they don't do anything to actually fix the root problem. So those problems are still there, and they're still festering, and you're spending all these resources dealing with something that has nothing to do with your problem. I feel like I kind of went on a rant there.
No,
I got my meaning across.
No, I completely understand what you're saying. And the irony of the whole, you're using a Bitcoin based or alternate currency, or what do you call it? Cryptocurrency? Is that what you call it?
Cryptocurrency.
Okay,
Yeah.
So you're using this cryptocurrency to help homeless people, which is such a kind of a libertarian thing. It's not, you're not forcing anyone to help them. You know what I mean? You're not taking the blanket from the business owner and handing it to the homeless person. It's complete charity, completely voluntary, whoever gives the money. And there's no victim, okay, as far as giving the homeless person a blanket. It's really just helping. And yet our government, or the city government, or I guess maybe it's just the spirit of the times, people losing their humanity, they're coming in and creating a victim out of something that, or worsening the victim of homelessness out of something that can be completely just a good deed. And so that's what's just blows my mind. Anyway, so that's why I just want to get this show out, and hopefully people will see that there's good in the world. Well, just by example.
I appreciate you being willing to have me on and talk about this. I think that's cool, and I hope that your listeners, are at least interested in what's going on, because it just takes a few people being interested and actually being willing to stop and look around and actually look at what is actually happening, not look at what you're being told is happening or what the reasons they give you for, but actually sit down and look at the situation. And so, that's cool. I applaud you for doing your show. I think that's awesome.
Well, thanks. So we've got about 38 minutes left, And I know a lot of people are going to tune in because they want to know more about Bitcoin. So I have a few questions about Bitcoin. I mean, would you consider yourself an expert on this? Are you involved in Bitcoin in any other way? Or
I'm heavily involved in Bitcoin in terms of that. Like I feel like Bitcoin is a revolutionary movement. I think of it, man. I think there's an ideology to it, and it's a very libertarian ideology, which is all the things that you were saying. That a lot of the problems in our society come from the fact that we don't have a true free market. It comes from the fact that we're not allowed to just voluntarily engage in transactions with each other and prove that we're willing to take care of each other. When there's a problem, we are forced to pay taxes, and we are forced to participate in this system that says that it's taking care of us, but they don't really do a good job of it. And so Bitcoin negates a lot of that. I mean, not taxation. I'm not on here saying don't pay taxes on your Bitcoin, but a true market economy, it fixes a lot of issues, because when you get into like a bloated, antiquated system that has some setup in where it's not fair, where one actor gets to just decide how things are happening for all of the other actors, that actor there's a lot of value to ensuring that he maintains that control of being able to dictate what other people do. And so then if you look at government, and it's not just city government, it's governments as a whole, if you look at them, they may have been started, when they were initially started, they may have been started under the best of intentions. They may have said, hey, look, we're going to pool resources together because we need to build roads, or we need to have we need to start schools, or we need to do something. But once that goal was accomplished, it's that getting them to relinquish the sword is impossible, because they just start building in protocols that start supporting themselves, to ensuring that they continue to be able to do what they do, and then you get completely away from the spirit of why that entity ever existed ever. And so, that you could say that about governments, you could say that about large incumbent businesses, and so I think that's a real good analogy to use for Bitcoin is that Bitcoin is the U.S. dollar, like a young, scrappy startup company is to some old incumbent that everybody knows. Everybody knows what the name brand is. And they've used their services, but because that company is so large, their customer service is terrible, and they don't provide as good of a product as they can. And there's an opportunity for young companies to come in with vision and do it better and do it more efficiently and take market share away from those big companies. And that's essentially what Bitcoin does. It does to all fiat currencies, not just the U.S. dollar, but any fiat-based currency. Because Bitcoin is not, you can't inflate it. You can't go make new, just print out as many Bitcoins as you want to.
Yeah, I never thought about that. I understand the supply-demand aspect of it and how the price fluctuates, but you're right. There is no possible way to inflate Bitcoin. That's cool.
Yeah, it's literally a deflationary currency. The protocol, how Bitcoin is built to where there will only ever be 21 million Bitcoins. And the 21 millionth Bitcoin won't be mined until 2140. And I might have that number off by a couple of years. But so I'm more, 100 years plus into the future. There's a lot more than 21 million people on the planet. So one Bitcoin actually divides into 100 million places. You can fractionally take just a millifraction of Bitcoin and send it to anybody. And that's what makes it powerful, because money's cumbersome. For instance, there was just an article about the largest Bitcoin transaction ever just happening. You just saw it come across the blockchain, and somewhere on Earth, someone sent $147 million worth of Bitcoin to another Bitcoin address.
Wow.
So that's right. So that's big. $147 million. It's not as big as multinational corporations moving money around, but $147 million is a large chunk of money. But let's break that down a little bit more. That happened instantly. $147 million was moved from one place on the planet to theoretically any other place on the planet, or not even on the planet. I mean, they just did an International Space Station transfer of Bitcoin. So I mean, you can actually send it off the planet. But it was moved, ownership of that was moved from one account to another account immediately. And the cost for doing that was next to nothing.
That's exactly what my next question was. Yeah.
There's what's called a miner's transaction fee, but currently a miner transaction fee is 0.00001 Bitcoin, which breaks down to being about 1/100th of a penny.
Okay.
To send any amount of Bitcoin. So those people I think we could all agree that anything less than a penny is essentially free. And they sent $147 million for free to wherever they went to on the globe. Now think about if they would have done that with a bank wire. The bank would have charged them an exorbitant amount of money. One, they probably wouldn't have done it. There probably would have been some regulation.
Let me tell you. I know how much this stuff costs because I had a web designer work on my website, and someone had hacked into my PayPal. I was going to pay him with PayPal, right? But I couldn't because PayPal closed my account until they investigated this person who apparently tried to book a hotel in Paris, okay? So I had to Western Union, because this was some guy, a subscriber recommended to me. He did a great job, but I Western Union him. It was $33 to Western Union $200. You know what I'm saying? So, holy mackerel.
You paid 17% on your money. Yeah, you paid 17%. Imagine if that person with $147 million would have to pay 17% just to send it. And so there's a lot of stuff like that. So there's a huge, what's called the remittance market, which is people that work in a different country because there's better job opportunities. They send money home to their home country because, that money goes a lot farther there. The Philippines is real big on this. India's real big on this. Mexico's real big on this. You'll come to the United States and get a job and they'll send that money home to Mexico.
Right.
So, that's Western Union's bread and butter is they get to, they know those people need to send that money so they can charge this exorbitant fee just for this, the privilege of being able to send your own money to your own family. So Bitcoin destroys that business model entirely. And actually, you can go look this up. About a week and a half ago, the Bitcoin daily transaction level, the amount of money that is transacted daily in Bitcoin actually surpassed Western Union. So there's more Bitcoin transactions happening daily than there are Western Union. And they're at the Money 2020 conference in Las Vegas this year. There were some well-known financial economists that basically said they didn't think Western Union would have a business model as is right now. If they were to continue doing what they do right now, they wouldn't have a business model in 5 years. That Bitcoin or something like Bitcoin would completely, negate the need for that sort of money transfer, for that personal wire transfer concept. Because it's dumb. Like, why would you pay $200 if you have $200?
Okay, thanks, Jason.
Would you spend $30 for it,
Well, thanks a lot.
But the thing is right now, that dude probably wouldn't take Bitcoin, And
right? Yeah.
There's actually even been talk of Western Union actually becoming the world's largest Bitcoin exchange because they already have they already have all of these agent locations and they're already licensed money transfers. So why don't they just get rid of all their technology and just be Bitcoin? Like, you need Bitcoin, just go down to the Western Union and buy Bitcoin or some get money with that. So there's a lot of interesting things, but what Bitcoin's going to change is that it's going to change the landscape a lot. A lot of businesses and business models right now are going to be completely different because of what Bitcoin's going to do.
Well, let me tell you, I'm a Bitcoin beginner, but I did figure out, I used, I guess, Coinbase or whatever. And
yeah, Coinbase.
Yeah, what's your opinion on that?
Oh, I love them.
Okay.
I think, Brian Armstrong, their CEO, is a good guy. He's a stand-up guy. They're backed by some really good people. They're actually a Y Combinator company. I don't know if you know what that means, but Y Combinator is a startup. Y Combinator is sort of like the Harvard of startup accelerators in Silicon Valley. They're in Mountain View, but they have sort of a reputation for creating really, really awesome startups, and Coinbase is a Y Combinator company. So they have really good people at the helm. They have really good mentors, really good advisors, and I think Coinbase is positioned to be like a very, very dominant force in the Bitcoin world.
Okay, well, good. And they actually made it really easy for me to code a little button So I now have where you can donate Bitcoin on my website. But speaking of donating, where can people make a donation to your website, and where is that?
So Sean's Outpost.com, so SEANS Outpost.com. And then you can just click on the donate button. I think that makes it seansoutpost.com/donate, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, and then you'll find my Bitcoin address, or, the Sean's Outpost Bitcoin address. And just, if you're so inclined and you would like to support what we're doing and put a little bit of your money towards making sure that another person gets fed, that would be awesome.
Yeah, and actually, speaking of, weird technicalities with donating, one of my subscribers, he told me, because in my button that I made, I guess they were supposed to put in their email address, and he said some people may not want to donate if they have to put in their email address because it gets rid of some of the anonymity. So can you go into more of the anonymity factor and how that works? Why wouldn't they want to advertise donating? I understand people trying to get out of paying taxes or whatever, but I mean, can you just delve more into that, the privacy thing?
Yeah, absolutely. So, the way that the system continues to be able to flout that we need all of these identification rules is they say, well, if things are done anonymously by people, by people that want to do nefarious things. And that's true, but everyday people have a strong need for privacy as well. And but if you think about just in terms of what I do, think about just in terms of a charity. So here in Pensacola, what I do is technically illegal. Going out and handing out blankets is I'm aiding and abetting a crime. I mean, Pensacola Police Force has in no uncertain terms told us that. So if you are a resident of Pensacola and you believe in what we do, right, but you're afraid because the public sentiment is against the homeless, that if you put your name associated with what we do, that might have some sort of backlash on you, then Bitcoin is a great alternative because you can send me, money that I have no idea where it came from. You can support the cause that you do. You can vote with your dollar. That concept of voting with your dollar.
Oh yeah, I love that. You know what? You just made me think of campaign contributions. Can you imagine if campaign contributions were required to be received anonymously? How much our entire political spectrum would change?
Yeah, it would. Right. Well, so what's really funny is that the campaign finance regulatory system right now is voting on whether they can accept Bitcoin as for campaign funds.
Well, I hope they require it
right now.
Well, that sounds like a good solution to this whole, crony capitalism thing because, and so I get what you're saying about donating because, I'm an Army wife and I talk about things that maybe, I don't know, aren't the best for my husband's career.
Exactly. You could put, your husband could, be in a compromising situation. Well, think about things like Private Manning and, WikiLeaks.
Mm-hmm.
Those are war crimes that happened. And they get to hide behind this concept that was national security. It's no, those were war crimes, and they reported you committed a crime, and we ratted you out. Well, so an organization like WikiLeaks, the U.S. government comes out actively calls WikiLeaks a terrorist organization, say that this is a threat to national security. When really, I think that things like WikiLeaks are actually protecting our freedoms. They're actually helping to keep us free. But again, if you're an organization and your credit card statement says that you donated to WikiLeaks, that might be problematic for you in the United States. And so with Bitcoin, which WikiLeaks does in fact take Bitcoin. They're one of the largest Bitcoin charities. So that completely negates that. But it can actually go a step further. For a while, Visa and MasterCard both denied WikiLeaks the ability to accept credit card donations. They're this is just too politically intense for us. We're not going to grant you the ability to accept credit cards.
Which I'm sure that there's Visa. I'm sure there's Visa and MasterCard on child porn sites throughout the United States, but they can't. They can't transact WikiLeaks, right? I don't know. I'm just saying. Right. I'm making a guess. I don't go to those sites, but that's ironic to me. That I'm sure that goes on.
Right. Well, so the great thing is that you can't stop a Bitcoin. You can't regulate a Bitcoin out of existence. It's a protocol. It's algebra. It's you can't put a gun to algebra's head and make it do what you say. It's just going to work the way that algebra works, you know? And so that's what's awesome about Bitcoin. So it was like, it's just a blip. Visa and MasterCard shut them down. I started taking Bitcoin and then like never looked back. And they did so well at fundraising via Bitcoin that like MasterCards were like, now we're just losing out on money. So then MasterCard gave them their account back, you know?
Yeah.
So it's interesting. It's an interesting time to live in right now.
Huh. So, okay, so I have more questions for you. Do you think, I know there's been a lot of ups and downs with Bitcoin. I heard, Mike Adams on Natural News, he posted an article that it had crashed, and I bought a Bitcoin right after that, and I paid around $95. And right now, I know a week or two ago, it was over 1,000, and now it's at 800? I mean, so I know it's a little bit crazy right now, but with time, do you predict that it's going to stabilize without giving anyone any financial advice, of course?
Yeah, see, I'm obviously not giving anybody financial advice.
No one is. No one is here. No one.
No,
Yeah.
but so with Bitcoin, either it is this revolutionary new technology that's going to change everything, or it isn't. There's not really a middle ground there. So if it is, mathematically, the price should continue to go up, and it's going to be a while before you actually see any real stability in terms of Bitcoin being around the same value for an extended period of time. And like that's just a function of math. Is that there's a finite amount of Bitcoin. There are significantly more people on Earth to buy them. So it's like like I said, like in all of eternity, there will only ever be 21 million Bitcoins. And there's something like 7 billion people on Earth. So it's like it's physically impossible for more than 21 million people to ever own a Bitcoin. So that's just supply and demand. As Bitcoin adoption starts happening, as more businesses start accepting Bitcoin, what they're doing, the price is going to go up. The people are going to start using it. More people are going to want to buy Bitcoin. That's going to make Bitcoin more valuable, and so it's going to go up. So. In a short period of time, if you take a snapshot of a month or 3-month time period, you might see ups and downs. But if you back out on Bitcoin, if you back out 4 years and just look at it, it's really just a huge trend up. There's not a spike down. It's really just going up. And you'll probably see that for a while. So the volatility is is very easy to mitigate. If you're buying it for an investment, just put it away. Don't worry about it. You've already spent the money. Just put it away and come back to it in a couple of years. But if you're a merchant and you want to accept Bitcoin, there are services like Coinbase and like BitPay, and both of those have the function for you to accept payment in Bitcoin and then immediately sell your Bitcoin on the market for market price and then put the cash in your bank account.
Okay, so I'm glad you're getting into that because I heard some rumor about it was not Coinbase. It was some other, I guess they're called wallets or whatever. It was some other company that was not letting this guy sell his Bitcoin. And it was one I hadn't heard of, and it said, I think Ben Swan's website was talking about it. He said, watch out for this guy. But this one wallet, but it was like there was a delay or something. So when it comes to selling, I know with buying it took a few days, but that was the only one I bought, so I don't know. But how much of a delay is there in this buying and selling? So you're saying automatically should be?
Yeah, but I mean, it would function, so like if you're a merchant, it would function very similar to how your credit card process works, which is you process a transaction on credit card, the credit card network authorizes that amount, and then they put it on a ledger, and then they clear their ledger by putting that money into your bank account. That takes a day or a couple of days, and it's the same thing. Like Coinbase and BitPay both have that same functionality: is that you get paid in Bitcoin, that amount is immediately credited into U.S. dollars, and then that credit is deposited into your account. So the cool thing about that is that like it doesn't matter what the price of Bitcoin is. Like if you're like there's nothing denominated in Bitcoin right now. If you get a pizza, like that pizza is $20. Like that pizza is not 0.00034 Bitcoin. Even if it's worth 0.0034 Bitcoin right now, like Papa John's doesn't sell their stuff denominated in Bitcoin. So they just want $20. They're going to get $20. No matter what what the price is. in Bitcoin, they're going to get $20 worth of it because BitPay or Coinbase, will just sell it for US dollar and put the US dollar in your bank account. So in that aspect, credit card processors charge anywhere from 2.5 to damn near 4% for a transaction fee. Coinbase charges 1%. BitPay actually stopped charging a percentage at all. They actually charge a monthly fee. So it's like, I think you can pay like $30 and then as much transaction volume as you do is free. So if you could think about businesses where your profit margin is small, where you only have a couple of percent of a profit margin, if you completely take away that 3% you're paying your credit card company, like you have a huge increase in your profit margin.
Right, and I've seen merchants.
That's great.
I've seen merchants on Facebook where they're saying, if you pay us in Bitcoin, we'll give you this much in rewards. It's like they really want, and I guess it's because of the money that they're saving off of these fees, because it seems like it's almost starting to benefit people doing the purchasing more as well at this point.
Yeah, and a lot of places that accept Bitcoin will actually give you a discount. Like you'll actually pay less if you'll pay in Bitcoin. For that exact reason, it's cheaper for them to accept it. And Bitcoin, a lot of merchants are holding on to Bitcoin. They're not transacting it back into U.S. dollars, and because Bitcoin is it's a finite resource. So there's an incentive for them to discount it to be able to actually just get a hold of some more Bitcoin. So it's a great place to be.
Yeah, seriously. So I want to ask more. Okay, so I just don't understand the whole privacy thing. I know I've started using, this is a little bit unrelated, but just in my web searches, because I'm kind of trying to become a little bit of a journalist, and I don't want people to think that I'm searching things for personal reasons when perhaps it's research. So I've started using Tor and Vidalia and stuff just because I want my web searches to be private. So if I want to make my Bitcoin, say I wanted to donate and I didn't want my name on there for whatever reason, how do I ensure that donation is private? Is it just...
Well, so this is what's awesome about Bitcoin, is that Bitcoin's pseudo-anonymous. Like, it can be as anonymous or as unanonymous as you want to. And so, like, if you wanted to donate to me, and you wanted, people to know that, like, you could announce it. You could say, this is my Bitcoin address, and I'm donating Sean's Outpost because I think Sean's Outpost is cool and I want to feed on with you. You could totally do that. And then it wouldn't be private. People would know that you gave you that donation. And that's cool. And there's a lot of uses that that's cool for. But what's awesome is that when you have a Bitcoin wallet, and even if you use a service like Coinbase or something, you hold it in there, you have the ability, one Bitcoin account can generate literally an unlimited supply of new, unique Bitcoin addresses. So you can, it's all in the same wallet. So you can create another wallet and never tell anyone that you own that address. And then so now there's another level of anonymity to that because it's not tied to you. And you can take that farther because you can set things up through, like you said, you were using Tor. You could set your Bitcoin wallet up through, using Tor and only using proxies. And then there's also not any IP address information associated with your transaction, So that's what's great about Bitcoin. It's not that, everything has to be anonymous and like everyone has to use encryption, has to use, something like Tor. It's that you're able to, if you want that if you need that, if you think that's important to you, you can make the choice to do that. Or like, with Sean's Outpost, I want everyone to know like what we do with our money. So like, we're very, we're very overt with it. Like we tell everybody what we spend our Bitcoins on. So we can do that. And the other end of the spectrum is, you could, lock your money away and no one ever know it was you. I mean, they could go on the blockchain and see that those coins physically exist. They would have no way to know that you are the possessor of those coins. And so, like, this is a huge issue right now with Ross Ulbricht and the Silk Road, the demise of the Silk Road, is that there are, I think they have now, the value of the Bitcoins that they have been able to seize is somewhere around $100 million. But all of their analysts, and, they're going through and they're seeing that they think there's probably somewhere around the nature of $800 million worth of Bitcoin that they can't get access to.
So you think those are in like a Swiss bank account or something? I mean, because the international...
Well, I mean, I think that they're probably in a Bitcoin wallet that they're never going to get access to, that like they'll never be able to prove exists. So, It's interesting.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, the whole thing just blows my mind, and it was really just confusing to me at first. And I just have to say thank you to my one subscriber, and I think it's 420 Productions. He does music and stuff too, and he liked some of my songs, but he was telling me months ago to buy Bitcoin, and so I did, and it was actually easier than I thought to go to Coinbase. I think it took a few days just to approve the bank transfer for me to buy it because it was my first transaction, but then it was pretty simple after that. But I'll have to look into creating these new, you said it's creating not multiple wallets, but multiple, what are they called again?
Addresses. Yeah.
Okay, like an IP address.
You could have multiple wallets as well. Like you could use as many wallets as you wanted to as well. It's like you have the ability to do that. There's no regulation that says you should only have one wallet. Like, you can do whatever you want to. There's a great sort of meme that Bitcoin is the honey badger of money because Bitcoin doesn't give a shit. Like just do whatever you want to with it. And so it's great.
So speaking of actually regulation, go ahead.
Oh, what you're saying about Coinbase is that when you first sign up and you got to attach your bank account to it, there is that delay there. But if you think about it, we all had that same delay the first time we ever used PayPal. Mm-hmm. But we actually have all forgotten about that because it was so long ago that we set up our PayPal account. And once you set it up and you're already authorized, then you don't have any problems, except unless you're actually using PayPal and PayPal sucks and you have problems like you had. But I mean, once you get set up on Coinbase, like you don't even think about those things anymore. Like you just buy or sell Bitcoin. That's just what happens. Mm-hmm. There's not all these delays and friction.
Cool. And so you mentioned there are no regulations a minute ago. What do you think? I'm afraid, this is what I'm afraid of. I'm afraid of one of two things. Either some law is going to be created that's going to make it illegal because they're going to claim that we're creating our own, currency and somehow that's illegal, or the government's going to completely take it over and it's going to be the opposite of anonymous. It's going to be they just track everything and force us to use it, and then they track it all. So, I mean, what do you think? Is there anything in the works on that?
Yeah, so here's what's also about Bitcoin is that, no one owns it. It is everybody that has a Bitcoin wallet is doing their part to support the blockchain and to verify transactions and to secure Bitcoin because Bitcoin is completely decentralized. It's a distributed system. So there is no single point of failure. There's not like a server room the government can come take over and then they own Bitcoin. That's just not possible. So regulation, it's a real dangerous thing, but not really for Bitcoin. It's really dangerous for the regulator and the United States is kind of feeling this right now because, there have been some institutions in the United States that have been timid about, dealing with Bitcoin businesses. And, that didn't stop Bitcoin business. It just moved the Bitcoin business out of the United States to places like Canada and Germany that have, excellent Bitcoin. They're very pro-Bitcoin. So, that's a dangerous place for the U.S. to be in. Do you really, we're known for being the forefront of technology. Mm-hmm. Do we really, we have this new upcoming technology. Do we really want to secede, our place is being a dominant force in it over stupid regulation? And so I think you can see this in action. But what's really surprising is there's actually just two congressional hearings on cryptocurrency, specifically on Bitcoin. And when they scheduled these hearings, they got expert witnesses, and they had Tony Gillespie, the CEO of BitPay, came on there, Patrick Merck, general counsel for the Bitcoin Foundation, went to speak to Congress, basically thought, the whole community's feelings was that this was going to be the beginning of them saying, we're going to start regulating the hell out of Bitcoin, we're going to start trying to make it really, really difficult for you, which just seems like a really bad plan for the U.S. government, but that's not what happened. They went to Congress, and Congress, all of Obama's advisors, all of the people that took said, Bitcoin has a lot of legitimate uses. It could actually solve a lot of problems. I think there's a really bright future for Bitcoin, and we should probably leave Bitcoin alone and allow this innovation to grow and just shock the hell out of everyone.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah. The Congress is not generally forward thinking like that. They're generally very backwards. But it was, and I think that's it. And I think what I was just talking about if they were to try to regulate it now, it wouldn't stop Bitcoin. It would just move Bitcoin out of the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if the United States, if governments in general want to stay relevant, they're going to have to start proving their value. And stifling innovation is not a good way to prove your value to anyone. So I think knock on wood, I think maybe they're seeing that a little bit. It's still Congress; they're still doing really stupid stuff, but
Mm-hmm.
maybe there's a little glimmer of hope there.
Yeah, I'm surprised to hear that. And I know you mentioned it's, quote, decentralized, which is an interesting word to me because, I have the song Paranoid Conspiracy Theorist, and I talk about the bankers in there and the central bank, the international banking cartel. I mean, but seriously, do you think there's any way for them to get their hooks into this? I mean, the big banks? I mean, they would just have to buy a bunch of Bitcoin, right? I mean, is there a way to protect it from becoming centralized?
Well, I mean, there's no way to centralize it. I mean, there's literally like Bitcoin is a protocol, like I was talking about it being like algebra. Like Bitcoin's not centralized. There's not like a central authority that gets to tell you like what makes or does not make a Bitcoin. So yeah, could a bank decide that it wants to buy a bunch of Bitcoins and then have this great stake in Bitcoin? Absolutely, but that wouldn't stop Bitcoin because one Bitcoin could be divided 100 million times. So they would have a big stash of Bitcoin, but everyone else would still have some Bitcoin. We could still transact in it. And the thing is that right now most banks, Bitcoin's not even on the radar. Like the entire Bitcoin ecosystem just broke $10 billion, which $10 billion is a lot of money. $10 billion is nothing to Wells Fargo or Bank of America or Chase Manhattan. So they're not really paying that much of attention to it. By the time that they are paying attention, it'll probably be too late for them. I'm cautiously optimistic that I don't really think that there's anything that an organization like that can do. I think things that could damage Bitcoin, I think if we were to find a fundamental flaw in the program itself, that couldn't be corrected, because that's what's awesome, right? Is that Bitcoin is maintained by this core development group, and they're all over the world, and they're just anyone that has an interest in Bitcoin can take a look at what the source code of it, and they can contribute to it. If they see an issue, they can post. They can do a blog post. There's like a GitHub repository for all of the code, and so it's all maintained by like the whole world, a whole group of people. It's not one person gets to decide what happens or what doesn't happen. So what's awesome is if you see a flaw in Bitcoin, like it doesn't mean Bitcoin has to end. It means that like you can, just like a program has a glitch, you can put in a patch and fixes it. And so like Bitcoin used to have a lot of bugs. They got fixed over time, and so that can continue to happen. So even there, it's like finding it has to be a fatal flaw. It has to be something that can't be corrected. And so as time goes on, as more people start using it, because everyone that uses Bitcoin is also essentially beta testing Bitcoin too. They're testing it for usefulness, and they're seeing if there's issues with it. And as more and more people come into it, as it scales up, less and less chance that there actually still being problems in the software itself. So that's the only thing I could see that could really stifle Bitcoin. The other thing would be is like complete apocalypse, right? Like global nuclear annihilation, and I think we have bigger problems than Bitcoin in that problem.
Right, it would have to be a massive EMP pulse that knocks out the grid. Yeah,
exactly. Then fiat would go away even before Bitcoin. Like if it's all Walking Dead-ish, and we're all having to run through zombies or something. Like Bitcoin's not relevant at that point in time. But barring those two things, I think like just like Connor said, I think we're in a bright future.
Great. Well, okay, so we've got about 4.5 minutes left. So just before we end, can you say one more time the name of your website and where people can donate?
Yeah, absolutely. It's Sean's Outpost, and that's FEANS Outpost.com. And just click on the donate button there. And it'll pull up all of our Bitcoin address information, or Litecoin, or Peercoin, or Primecoin if you want to donate some other alternative currency. That'd be awesome.
Right, that's amazing. I just had I learned that the other day. I was on your website and I saw all the other ones, so I was totally confused by that. But no, I'm actually a lot less confused now. You actually got way more in depth than I was prepared for, but I'm glad you did, because I think the best
and,
thing.
And to answer your question way back is I don't think I'm a Bitcoin expert. I think I'm a Bitcoin enthusiast, and I love it. But I mean, there are definitely people that are much more knowledgeable about Bitcoin than I am.
Well, you spoke on a level that I can understand, so hopefully that's a good that's a good level for people listening too. And I think the best thing about Bitcoin is the limit, because even if bankers come in and they buy so many of them, like you said, there's a set number of Bitcoin. It's impossible to inflate it. So I think that gives me the most hope about keeping it out of the hands of the central banks. So even if they try to buy it, it's like ha ha ha, you know.
But also think about this, right? You know, if the central bank was to go onto a Bitcoin exchange and buy Bitcoin, right? You know, oh, that's terrible. Well, is it? Because they had to buy that Bitcoin from someone. Like, the exchange doesn't own it. Like, other people that have Bitcoin, that, you know, other people that, you know, anarchists, libertarians that own Bitcoin are choosing to sell their Bitcoin. So, like, in essence, it's win-win. Either they don't care about it and Bitcoin grows and it just annihilates the banks, or if the banks buy in, the banks actually have to pay these people that have sort of a contrarian view to them for the privilege of getting into Bitcoin. Because, like, you know, they're transferring value to other Bitcoiners.
And also, as they purchase more, then the value of it goes up, right? So if they do buy a whole bunch, then we're going to get more money, right?
Right. Oh, yeah. Like right now, you know, the total amount of Bitcoin that's available for sale actively on exchanges is actually very small. You could see something like, if someone should go on an exchange right now and try to buy $10 million worth of Bitcoin, the price of Bitcoin would go through the roof, because people would be like, oh, look at this dude buying all this stuff. I better crank my price up. And that's exactly what would happen. There would, like, the inventory of coins at the current sell price would just go away. And then all that would be left was people that wanted more money for the Bitcoin, and that would just keep going as more money kept coming into buy.
Bankers, we have you trapped. That just makes me so happy. There's no way they can escape our free money. Okay, sorry. Anyways, so, thank you so much. Seconds. Okay, yeah, we've got 90 seconds. Thank you so much for calling in. And you really taught me a lot. I really hope that some people help these homeless people in your area, because I saw it in South Florida. We were almost there ourselves. And so, anyway, I appreciate you calling and educating us all as well.
Well, thank you for having me on your show, Heather. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, well, I'll talk to you soon.
All right, take care.
Okay, bye-bye.
60 seconds.
All right, well, that was it. You guys heard from Jason King, founder of Sean's Outpost in Pensacola, Florida. I've known him for a very long time. He's a great guy. So I know this is a legit charity. And I've seen, if you go to the website, actually, seansoutpost.com, you can see a picture of their prototype, or I guess he said their working model of this little shelter. If you've seen those little miniature houses, it's sort of like that, and I think it's sitting in Sartoshi, however you say it, forest right now, and they could build more of those. And from what I understand, the name Sean's Outpost came from one of the first homeless people they met, whose name was Sean, and he was a homeless veteran, and he was a master carpenter. And so that inspired that portion of it, and the portion of getting them to help build homes for other homeless people as well. So I think the whole idea of it is amazing. Bitcoin is amazing. Oh, are we out of time? No way. Okay, you guys. Well, it looks like Blog Talk is over. And I'm still live on YouTube, but I just want to say thanks for tuning in, and feel free to donate if you really want to. If you're thankful on Thanksgiving, you've got anything floating around, if you're near Pensacola, I'm sure they'll accept food donations as well, but I hope you'll consider it, and have a wonderful Thanksgiving, you all. And please tune in next week at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time on Sunday night.